Welcome to the Testing Ethics Policy presentation for Utah educators. We will be discussing a number of things in this presentation, including the purpose of testing, assessments that fall under state testing, what educators should do before, during, and after testing, unethical testing practices and what happens when there are testing ethics violations, as well as resources regarding this policy. The purpose of testing is to find out what students know and can do without assistance or help from outside people. State assessments require that educators adhere to all ethical practices and procedures as outlined in this policy. This testing ethics policy is reviewed each year by the State Board of Education and applies to all state assessments. State assessments are federally mandated, state mandated, and/or require the use of a state assessment system or software that is provided or paid for by the state. What are the assessments that fall under this policy? State assessments include APPLE for DLI. Remember, this is for dual language immersion and not foreign language testing. Acadience Reading, ACT, Civics, DLM and UA, Kindergarten Entry and Exit Profile, RISE, and the Utah Aspire Plus. Federal assessments include NAEP and WIDA. A few things need to happen before testing takes place. The responsibility lies with licensed educators, but classified personnel, especially classroom aides, that assist with writing and instruction will also help with these items. So, what are the expectations for licensed Utah educators prior to testing? They need to provide instruction aligned to the Utah core state standards using appropriate, locally adopted curriculum. Educators should provide accommodations throughout instruction to eligible students, such as those that are second language learners or have an individualized education plan or 504 plan. They should use a variety of assessment processes throughout the year to assess student competency and inform instructional practices. They should provide students with a variety of assessment experiences, including frequent feedback on their performance. They should also use the resources provided for each assessment as applicable, familiarize students with the testing tools and question types. During testing, school districts should ensure that curriculum and instruction are aligned with the Utah core state standards. School districts should also allow a procedure for parents to opt their student out of state testing. All tests should be proctored under the supervision of a licensed educator. Educators and support staff who participate in test administration are required to complete an annual testing ethics training. If you are listening to this training, you are fulfilling this requirement. Educators should review preparation guidelines and test administration materials for the assessments prior to test administration. During testing, licensed Utah educators should provide an appropriate environment for testing to limit distractions. All students who are eligible to test should be tested or recorded as to why they did not participate. A student should never be discouraged from participating in testing. Students should not be penalized that opt out of state assessments, nor should they be rewarded for participating in or performing well on the state assessments. Students should be provided an alternative learning activity if they opt out of state assessments. A proctor should be present and active throughout the entire test session. Students should not use personal electronic devices during testing, including calculators. Makeup and test completion sessions should be provided for students, and accommodations should also be provided to those eligible students, such as second language learners, students with an IEP or 504 plan. After testing, districts should ensure that test results are provided to students and parents within 3 weeks of receiving them, along with information on how to appropriately interpret the scores and reports. Test results should be made available to educators for improving their instruction, and the results should also be maintained according to district policies and procedures. After testing, licensed educators should ensure that all byproducts, such as scratch paper, notes, student test tickets, are collected, secured, and destroyed as appropriate. All test material should then be returned to the district test coordinator. There are some unethical testing practices. A good way to remember what would be unethical is to tell yourself, if your actions will cause students to not receive a valid and reliable score that accurately reflects what they know and can do, don't do it. So, if we provide hints during the test, that would be unethical. If we coach them to go back and look at an answer, that would also be unethical. We want the test to reflect what the student knows and can do. If the student were to take the test 100 times, they would get similar results each time. What happens if you see someone doing something unethical during testing? You should report to your district assessment director. For our district, Superintendent Nan Alt is the district assessment director. Her contact information is found at the bottom of this slide. An initial investigation would be conducted at the school level if a violation occurred. Superintendent Nan Alt would then review the initial investigation and determine the findings. If the violation is of sufficient concern, the incident may also be forwarded to UPAC for review. If inappropriate practices are substantiated, educators or other staff may receive further training or a reprimand. They may be subject to disciplinary action or have the unfortunate possibility to be terminated and or lose their Utah teaching license. This slide includes several resources that are available to help you learn more regarding this testing ethics policy. Thank you for participating in this testing ethics policy presentation. If you have any further questions or need additional resources, please feel free to contact our district office at the number listed at the bottom of this slide.